Hi everyone. So I'm going to talk to you today about Saturn stationing direct in Pisces on the 15th of November. And that's not all, because we've got the full moon in Taurus coming up, and that's taking place 7 hours and 7 minutes after Saturn stations direct. A lot of big energy going on because the full moon in Taurus will also be conjunct Uranus. There is 1 degree difference, but Uranus is the planet of change. So there is quite a lot of big energy here, certainly big releasing, purging energy, and also big illumination energy. And to me, it feels like mass awakenings. Okay, but I'll come on to that in the chart, of course. Now, this is happening on the 15th of November, certainly for us in the UK on GMT. But the full moon itself could be on the 15th or the 16th, depending on where you are in the world. But there is still that 7 hours and 7 minutes difference. Now, 7-7, powerful angel number there, and very much connected to divinity. And I would say this path is all about that, because we are trying to understand more about our journey, certainly the sovereign path, the spiritual path, as we move forward. And so this is a very divinely aligned series of events that's going on. Of course, after that full moon in Taurus, we have Pluto ingressing into Aquarius. We have that monumental shift going on. So it is event after event after event, and quite big, because they're involving big energies. Saturn, you know, the moon as well, and also Uranus in the mix because of the conjunction, but also then Pluto. So there is a lot going on. So let's jump into the charts, and I'll try and keep this as brief as I can, because we've got a couple to get through here. And I'll also show you where this is happening for the UK. All right, here we go. All right, so this is the chart here that shows as a freeze frame of the cosmos, as an event, as an astrological event of the moment that Saturn stations direct in Pisces. And for us in the UK, that's happening at 14:21. Okay, so we are on GMT now. Apply your own time zones as appropriate. So what we have here is Saturn stationing direct at 12 degrees. This is the moment that he actually stations direct, and he will then begin to move forward. So at that moment, he is in a harmonious trine with Poseidon in Scorpio, and he will be in a challenging square with Mercury in Sagittarius. So this is all about, you know, the trine here, the harmony is when it comes to what has been shaken up for us. So think of Poseidon in the water, shaking up the sea, like from the depths, because this is Poseidon in Scorpio. So shaking things up, a bit like what Pluto's doing, but shaking things up within the emotions, within the feelings, the water, in order to understand what it is that we need to do, what it is we need to learn, what it is we need to, you know, change, because we're thinking of the lessons of Saturn, we're thinking of the task of Saturn, the tests that we're going through, as well as that underlying transformation that Pluto's calling for, which is about closing out cycles, heavily connected to tests and lessons that we're learning from Saturn. And remember, Pluto is doing his work in Saturn's home at that final anaretic degree of Capricorn. So there is a link there. So, you know, what's come up over that retrograde period since Saturn stationed retrograde back in the end of June, 29th or 30th, depending on where you are in the world. So there's been a period of 4.5 to 5 months of retrograde. And being in the sign of Pisces, you know, it's not the most comfortable place for Saturn to be, because Saturn brings that structure and those rules that Pisces doesn't really have. So it's bringing structure to a sign that potentially needs a bit of that. And there is a softening to the Saturnian energy because of what Pisces brings to that Saturn side. However, it's still, you know, not the ideal place. And we're possibly experiencing this. And if this is resonating for you, you're going to know what I'm talking about, because as we go through these spiritual tests and these lessons of Saturn, we're understanding what hasn't been in alignment with our soul. That can be quite difficult to accept, because we've got to come to that realization. So Saturn is a taskmaster in that way, but trusting also that the Piscean essence, there is an element of the ethereal here and our intuition. And we know Neptune is in Pisces. So we have that energy supporting us in terms of diving into our intuition, connecting with our intuition, and that energy is forcing us to do that. So we might not have had a close connection or a deep connection with our intuition before, but because of what we're being tasked with, what we're experiencing, these lessons that we are facing, and certainly have been facing for a time, it's encouraging us to go more within our intuition to seek the answers, because we realize the answers are within us. They're not external to us. And that's something that's quite profound on this path, actually, that we're often looking for that external validation, and it's actually within us. So connecting to our intuition, our higher self, also with our guides and our angels, if that's resonating for you, then we do have that wisdom within us, okay, within our soul bank, within our inner compass. We do have that within us, but because of experiences, because of challenges, because of conditioning, there might be layers that we have to unpick to get to that place. So Saturn is wanting us to get into alignment with our spiritual truth. He has been in the sign of Pisces since the 7th of March 2023, and he will be there until February 2026. So we are kind of more than halfway through. So we've done a lot already, and it feels like it's been a time of it, because if you've been tested and you've had these lessons, you're going to know that, you're going to feel it. And it just so happens that around this time is when Pluto is doing that work, as I mentioned. So we've got this deep, profound transformation that is still being called for. And even when Pluto moves into Aquarius, that's not the end of our evolution. That's not the end of our transformation, because we're always going to be evolving and developing on our path. So there will always be a need for Pluto in that respect. It just means that when Pluto kicks off this new cycle in Aquarius for 20 years, this new reality, because it is all about the new, it's about different ways of connecting with others, maintaining that uniqueness as well, the individuality that comes from it, but connecting to humanity in a different way. This is about now saying, okay, we've had to really profoundly transform to get to this point. And the main part of that, I would say, is closing out cycles that we know are not in alignment with our soul. They're not in alignment with our spiritual path, because we've evolved, because we've developed, because we've learned those lessons that Saturn has been teaching us. So we need to then detach from that which is not serving us. And of course, the full moon that's going to be coming up 7 hours and 7 minutes after this moment is, of course, perfect lunar energy to work with for releasing and purging. But that can go on at any time, because we're closing things out all the time, we're moving on, we're having to kind of detach from the old in order to enter into the new. We can't enter into new cycles or have space for the new in our life unless we can let go of the old, and that's the old that doesn't serve us anymore. Okay, that's not the wisdom that comes from the old stuff. It's not the past experiences that we hold within from a wisdom perspective and a lesson perspective. It's about the energy that we're holding on to that's not serving us anymore. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But we've had to have that kind of shaking up of the waters to feel these things, to understand those lessons of Saturn. So he stations direct and is almost like thanking Poseidon for that help, and in this moment of that help, of still revealing stuff to us that we need to understand, because of course Poseidon is in Scorpio. This is also going to be valid as an astrological body being in a sign. We can look at it from that meaning as well, but as you know, with astrology, there's many different layers to it, there's different aspects. These planets, these asteroids move, okay, and whether they're in retrograde or whether they're moving forward, this is about understanding the alignments that they make at certain points in order to understand the energy, okay, as above, so below. So we look at that, and that's harmonious, because Saturn wants us to go deep into the fields. He wants us to actually understand where the action needs to be taken from that place of being motivated from emotions being stirred up. Okay, that's to get us in alignment with our spiritual truth, and that's the harmony, okay, that comes from it. So it might not feel like it, but it is for our highest good. Now, the square to Mercury in Sagittarius is all about, Mercury in Sag being that quite motivational expression, but it can also be quite blunt and quite direct, okay, just like any of the fire signs can be. So there is an expansive energy to Sagittarius. So this could be opening up communication that's quite blunt, quite direct, but also quite motivational. But because there is a square here, I would say it's bordering more on the blunt side of it, and it's more on the challenges or potential resistance to open up the communication, because perhaps we don't want to go there. We just don't want to say what we want to say, even though these things have been revealed to us and we need to express ourselves in that way. Maybe we don't want to because we don't want to cause problems, or maybe we are fearful of being open to receiving that kind of communication. But without that and understanding a situation, how can we then evolve? How can we move on? And how do we know what certain cycles do need to close out in our lives? So that square, I feel, is just challenging the energy when it comes to open communication. From a motivational communication perspective, that is what I see when I look at Mercury and Sagittarius as a general point. But the square indicates a challenge. So there does feel to be potential resistance of speaking up or opening up the throat chakra to speak in that way that comes from a place of motivation for ourselves, and to be quite blunt and direct about it. Because after all, Sag is also about shooting the arrow in the direction of what we want. So, okay, we might have understood what we want because we've understood what we don't want. And now we've got to speak about what we want. Oh gosh, you know, that's a lesson in itself, Saturn. So, you know, that can also bring that challenging energy. Okay. The other things I was drawn to on this chart, because I've actually got more to show you on the next one, which is the full moon. But what I was also drawn to here is at this particular moment, we've got the sun at 23 degrees of Scorpio, and we've got Pallas Athena at 23 degrees. Now, I was just drawn to that because 2 and 3 is 5, so it reduces to a 5, and that's all about change. Now, Sun in Scorpio, that's about going deep within the soul to really claim that authenticity. Okay, it can also represent things that are hidden. That's why it's going to the depths of the soul. So it's understanding what is deep within the soul from an authentic place. And Pallas Athena in Sagittarius about needing to strategize and put plans in place because of wanting to go after what we want. What are we willing to fight for? So the essence of change around this is saying, okay, perhaps this is a turning point now of Saturn showing me those lessons, and now he's direct. This is all about understanding I can create the change. I can actually make the change by putting a plan in place for what I want to go in the direction of. And okay, it might be challenging from a communication point of view because of what I've just shown you, but actually that's the direction in which I'm heading. That's where I've shot my metaphorical arrow in the direction of. So I know I want to fight for that, and I know that I need to strategize and put a plan in place, and the change is enabling me to do that. That's the catalyst for change. Okay, just like the catalyst for change within the soul is about going deep. So it's uncovering a depth to your soul that you either didn't know existed or it was hidden there, and now you're more confident and comfortable to express it because of everything that's been going on and what's been revealed, and you know, needing to get tough with these lessons and building up your strength, empowerment, things like that. So really feeling like you can go deep now and express yourself from a soul perspective in terms of who you are as that authentic being. Okay, so I just felt that was quite pivotal as catalyst of change because of the connection to the 5 there from the 23. And down here we've also got the moon, which at this point is 19 degrees, but it will move to 24 at the time of the full moon. Okay, and then it's closer to Uranus that I mentioned. But here we've got the moon in Taurus at this point. So there is still this desire, you know, within our feelings of wanting to experience the finer things in life. You know, we know what we like, we know what feels good to us, but there is an element of worth and values here. So understanding our worth and values allows us to understand what we like the look of, you know, what feels good to us. So, you know, it's a two-way street with that. But also, in terms of the Taurus energy of, you know, our resources and actually feeling that we are worthy of having the reality that we desire, that earth reality, and also to feel secure in our feelings, okay? Because Taurus can also symbolize that security within our physical reality. So yes, we want to feel secure, absolutely. The correlation here was just the fact that I saw the numbers again, 1919. So 1 and 9 is 10, and that reduces to a 1, and that's all about the self. So yes, we're putting ourselves first from an emotional home perspective, okay, because we want that security within our reality, but we have to feel worthy of that and receiving that abundance that we're worthy of. And that's also getting in alignment with our values. And Saturn would have been teaching us what is no longer in alignment with our values, where our values have had to change, for example. And Jupiter being in retrograde is that expansion, but on an internal level, because it's a retrograde, so it's introspection, and it's massive expansive energy, but it can expand the negative and the positive. So this is about understanding from a self perspective, if I just use numerologically, that this is about inner growth and expansion that can come from acceptance of our worth and values, how we want to feel, what it is that we're wanting to, you know, fight for and go in the direction of. That is giving us that inner expansion, because we're building up more of that resilience within us, and we are becoming more sovereign. So everything links, okay? The Gemini energy here is just saying to me that, yes, we might have to look at things from different perspectives to understand, but also the higher perspective is the important one here as well. Because why are we needing to get into alignment with our spiritual truth? Because we're moving forward into this new age of Aquarius, and we need to be aligned with our divinity, because that raw authenticity and the pure divinity within is the direction in which we're heading. So the unhealthy ego, the conditioning, the falseness, all of those kind of things need to be shed, because there's no room for it as we're moving forward. It's new reality time, okay? So there is inner expansion to be had. I just wanted to draw attention to that. Okay, all right, so very quickly, I will just show you the chart of that against the UK. Oh, that's the full moon in Taurus, apologies. I've usually got them side by side. There we go. Okay, so here we've got the UK's natal chart as the inner wheel. Outer wheel is Saturn stationary direct, what I've just shown you. Okay, so that's happening in the 9th house for the UK. That's about learning, discovery, teachings, education. Okay, so yes, what has the retrograde taught us? What have we learned from Saturn's retrograde? And we are still going to be learning, because he's going to be in the 9th house for a bit of time until he then moves into the 10th house. So what are we learning here? What have we learned? And the square that's going to Mercury in Sag, and also the trine that's going to Poseidon in Scorpio, well, that's the 5th house for both, because the 5th house includes a bit of Scorpio and a bit of Sag here. And this is what makes astrology unique. As I say many, many times, it is not just one house per sign. This is what makes it unique. Okay, so your natal chart is going to be unique to you. And here we've got that fixed energy of Scorpio, and we've got the mutable energy of Sagittarius in the 5th house for the UK. So there is that water and fire energy here in the 5th house of the heart chakra, of love, of joy, of creative artistic expression. It's all about that real, pure, authentic expression from a soul. It's like, this is me, this is who I am going to show you. It's about being seen for who we are, but coming from that place of that heart chakra opening to show and reveal, this is who I am. No fakeness, this is who I am. So the fact that we've got, you know, the trine to Poseidon, that's kind of been shaking that up to say, okay, what has been bringing you joy? What is it that you like to do? Why are you still doing that if it doesn't bring you joy? Shaking up the emotions in that respect. And then we've got Mercury and Sag there as well, almost saying, right, okay, so we need to expand the communication from a heart-centered place, but it needs to be, you know, in line with what does bring us joy and what doesn't bring us joy. And that's where the challenge can come in, if we've got to speak up about that. Now, interestingly, Mercury is exactly conjunct the UK's natal vertex point. So it's a very fated, destined moment at this particular time of opening up our expression, opening up our communication, even if it's our own communication within our thoughts. Okay, this is about being open-minded in our communication as well, in terms of where we do want to shoot that arrow towards, and the communication that we might have to make or follow in order to kind of put things into motion, if you like. Remember, Sag is also about the quest, and it's very interesting that the ninth house is actually Sag's house. So, you know, that is about learning. It is a journey in that respect. So that's where Saturn is. So Saturn is there with us on the ride of this journey. But he's saying, look, okay, so you've learned, you've understood from my time of retrograde. So you've been introspecting, you've been learning lessons also about what's in alignment with your soul's truth. Well, okay, so what has brought you joy? What do you think brings you joy? Is that in alignment with your soul's truth? Well, no, if it doesn't bring you joy, it's not, is it? So speak up about it. So express yourself about it. Get blunt about it if you need to. Get real about it if you need to. And Poseidon almost supporting that energy by churning up the emotions to allow us to understand that. So it's a pivotal point for that from a UK collective perspective, okay? And how we are learning what is going on in terms of what does bring us joy as a collective in the UK and what doesn't bring us joy. And the fact that we need to speak up about it or to open up our communication about it can be the challenge here. But we're learning the lessons. This is about getting us in alignment with our spiritual truth. Okay, fabulous. Right, let's move on to the full moon in Taurus. I gave you a bit of a glimpse of it just now by mistake, but here we go. Okay, full moon in Taurus, a lot more going on here. So this is happening for us in the UK on the 15th of November at 21:28, so 9:28 p.m. Okay, but it's going to be the 16th of November in Sydney, I believe. So apply your own time zones as appropriate. But essentially, this is happening 7 hours and 7 minutes after Saturn stations direct. So I'm going to focus on Saturn first of all, and then I'll come on to the moon. So we've already covered that there is a square to Mercury in Sag and a trine to Poseidon in Scorpio. Well, now at this point, there's something else. Saturn is now in sesqui square to Lilith, who is in retrograde in Scorpio at 0 degrees. Now, Lilith, just like Saturn, is a great teacher. And what does she teach us? Our shadow side. Okay, so these are shadow aspects within us that maybe we haven't wanted to face, haven't wanted to acknowledge, we just don't want to go there. Well, she's going to show us these things. And also, by doing that, she enables us to connect to our deeper, darkest desires. And also that authenticity, that raw authenticity that's within. Now, she's in Scorpio, so that's like double the rawness here, double the authenticity. She is in a conjunction of sorts with Juno. There's 4 degrees difference, but they are still close. And that's about commitments. Okay, so there needs to be a commitment to the self in this journey, first and foremost, to acknowledge that we're going within and understanding these shadow aspects. We have to commit to ourselves to go there, to actually go to that place. But in our commitments with other people and our commitments to things, whatever that might be, we need to understand where the shadow aspects have been coming up. Are there things or people we've been committing to that we've been too fearful of committing to because we're not showing our true authentic selves? And why is that? Oh, there's a fear around it because when I was a child, this happened to me, or, you know, when I was in a relationship previously, this happened to me. And now everybody I meet is just the same because it's the same pattern. But why is it coming up? It's a wound. It's a pattern that needs healing. It needs that attention. So Lilith is teaching us this as well. And in retrograde, she is offering that introspection. The sesqui square is like a minor challenging energy. So of course, Saturn is teaching us to get in alignment with our spiritual truth, and he is now direct, and Lilith is now retrograde. So we're having to go within on the shadow feminine side. We also need to acknowledge our desires. So how do we know what is in alignment with our spiritual truth if we won't even go there with our desires, what we truly want from that deep, authentic place? And acknowledging that You know, this is who I am. This is the raw, authentic version of me. And this is what I desire in my life. So why is that challenging? Because of those shadow aspects. So Saturn is now going to allow Lilith to show us these things, if not already. But there's a minor challenge to it because we're having to go there. We're having to face it now. Because remember, in 4 days' time, Pluto is going to be going into Aquarius, new reality. This is about shedding that old version of ourselves that doesn't serve us. You know, that perception that we have of ourselves that is not right because we've chosen to abandon our authenticity on a deep level. Why? Because we're fearful of what other people think of us, or because we won't be accepted for our true self. Whatever it might be, these are shadow aspects coming up. Okay, but this is about now moving forward, closing out those cycles of limiting beliefs, understanding that, you know, other people's perceptions are their own perceptions, often because they've got things going on and they're just projecting them out, but realizing that we need to go within from a deep, authentic place and examine those aspects. We might not want to go there, but we've got the soul essence of the cosmos, the sun, supporting with that to go deep, and Poseidon, who's going to show it us anyway. Okay, we need to be committed to ourselves and committed to those aspects of ourselves, I would say, with that Juno and Lilith conjunction there. Be committed to ourselves, to show ourselves, you know, to want to uncover this, to want to actually realize what we truly desire, because we've kind of hidden that from ourselves for so long. Well, this is now about, this is go time. Saturn is saying, look, you know, get in alignment with your spiritual truth. This is time that we got the stuff done, you know, because he's a taskmaster. He wants us to get things done. Well, he wants us to get in alignment with our spiritual truth. How can we do that if we don't know the full extent and depth of our spiritual truth? So that's the minor challenge there. Okay. But understand here, we've got with Jupiter, Jupiter is there in sextile to Chiron. Okay, so this inner expansion that's going on as a result of all of this, there is harmony within the healing journey. So everything that we are understanding and looking at things from a different perspective and having to go deep, like I've just said, that is healing our sovereignty, because we're standing up for ourselves. We're becoming more of that leader of our own life, taking charge of our journey in that way, and understanding that to do that, we have to see those parts of ourselves that we've maybe hidden from ourselves or hidden from other people. Okay, to be our true authentic expression. And Chiron is square to Ceres. Okay, so yeah, there might be a bit of a challenging energy in terms of how our reality is going to unfold going forward, but there is a need for surrender in that respect. Okay, so we can be expanding. We've got that inner growth going on because of everything else, but we need to understand that, you know, to be a true leader on our path, we have to have that element of surrender, and that can be challenging because we want to control things. We want to know how things are going to be. It's walking into the unknown in our physical reality, because Pluto is going to carve out that new reality for us. Okay, and that can bring a challenging energy to it as well. If we look at the moon now, because I know I covered those points initially, but if we look at the moon, there is that conjunction now with Uranus, 1 degree difference, but you know, they're close. And Uranus is the planet of change, and it can be sudden change. Okay, Uranus rules Aquarius, so there's another link with what we're going into. But this is big energy as well. And with the moon there, okay, this could be a sudden illumination of things. This could be sudden awakenings on a collective level. Okay, mass awakenings is what I feel. And this is to do with, you know, acknowledgement of worth and values as part of all of this change that we want to see, feeling that within our emotions to guide us forward in that way, to understand that we need to release certain things, because that's what Pluto is wanting us to do, you know, in terms of the transformation. So this full moon being quite pivotal because it's the closest to Pluto's ingress into Aquarius. He's closing out the Capricorn cycle. So we are now closing out a lunar cycle, if you look at it like that, in terms of the full moon. okay, in terms of releasing. So that's what I mean by that. So detachment, releasing, purging. You can set intentions for those things that you're aware of that you do need to release, those cycles that you have become aware of that you do need to close out. And you can set the intention to do that. Now, whether you actually release them on this full moon or whether you're setting the intention to do it and putting that plan in place, like we saw with Pallas, Athena, and Sagittarius, you know, this is the direction I'm heading towards. Okay, I know I've got to close out these cycles. It's going to be a step-by-step process, but I'm setting the intentions on this full moon because I want to create that change that is more in alignment with my worth and values going forward. Okay, could be that. And Saturn would have been showing you, and Lilith will be showing you. So this is where it all works together as a bigger picture. Okay. So acknowledgement of that first and foremost. But there is the energy of releasing, certainly. The energy of illumination is big, I would say. And certainly when it comes to hidden stuff coming up. So this is where I feel about the mass awakening on a collective level. Okay. Now let's look at what's going on with the moon and Uranus, because we're going to count them together because their aspects are going to be together because of the conjunction. We know that there's an opposition with the sun because that's what happens with a full moon. Okay, so there is that opposition. But as a result of that, and any full moon, that's how we can see the moon, because the sun is showing us. So that depth of Scorpio is actually showing us what we need to release, purge, and also just showing us by way of illumination. Okay, it's coming from a deep place. It's coming from an authentic place, but it's also coming from a hidden place because Scorpio has also got those hidden aspects. So that with the moon together is why I'm saying about awakening, okay, on a deep level for some. And this is fixed energy. Taurus is a fixed sign. Scorpio is a fixed sign. And we've also got Leo and Aquarius as fixed signs. And I'll come on to Mars in Leo in a moment. But it's fixed energy. So there can be a stubbornness to this. A stubbornness to realities changing, potentially. A stubbornness to acceptance of what does need to be released, cycles that do need to be closed out. A stubbornness to take a leap of faith, to go wild with that scorpionic energy and actually embrace the authenticity and take a leap. Because of course, Taurus is wanting that security in our reality and needs to feel worthy of it. Okay, so that might identify further aspects for healing and so on. Take it as it resonates. But this is what's going on here. And we have got a harmonious trine to both Pluto and Ceres. So absolutely, this reality is changing and transforming. We know this. We've seen proof of this already. And yes, we want to be able to reap the rewards of our harvest. So the work we're putting into this, our healing journey, everything, our intentions for change is creating this reality, okay? We still need to surrender, but there is a nurturing aspect to this. And it's understanding that, yes, physical reality is changing and that's a good thing. So it might not look like it's a good thing, but it's a good thing, okay? And there is also a sextile to Neptune. So our intuition is guiding us on this path as we've become more attuned and more connected to our intuition and that source energy, because we need to, because Saturn is wanting us to get into alignment with our spiritual truth. Well, how do we do that? Unless we connect to our soul. So we're understanding what our soul is saying now and not the other noise that's around, even from the mind sometimes, because the mind will step in to protect us, okay? And we do need the two, but this is about feeling it on an intuitive level to guide the change. And within our emotions and needing to feel secure, okay, sometimes we need that 3D proof, don't we, that things are going to be secure. And maybe we haven't got that, and that's what makes it feel a bit unstable. But here, you know, the sextile to Neptune is saying, look, you know, our inner compass is guiding us. It's about trust in terms of what our inner compass is saying and connecting in meditation, maybe even visualizing on what that new reality is going to be, allows that to come into place. Because what's the saying? Where our energy flows, no, where our intention goes, our energy flows. So it's almost like, you know, we're putting our intention into this energy of this new reality we want to experience, and therefore we are manifesting it in that way. Okay, but there needs to be some element of surrender also. There is a Sesqui square minor challenge to Vesta in Libra. So terms of our sacred flame, what sparks that flame within, what inspires us, what is inspiring us to create this change? Well, we're coming from a place of fairness and balance and harmony. That's what we want. Okay. And the South Node is there in Libra as well. So yes, we want to lay a foundation of fairness, but also, you know, we're moving more in the direction of the Aries energy. So we're moving on to the sovereign path, laying that fair foundation behind us, but closing out cycles and certainly past life patterns and cycles in this lifetime that haven't been fair, that haven't been balanced. And perhaps our sacred flame energy, or that which we thought was tied up in that. So we need to understand, again, by connecting in with our deep desires and our authenticity, and that fifth house energy of you know, joy, love, and creative artistic expression, trying to get all those words out at once, apologies, but where we are trying to understand where that comes from and the joy that we want to receive, where is that coming from? What is the sacred flame to us? Has it changed? Because, you know, to restore balance, maybe it has shifted a bit. So the slight challenge there is how that might be impacting our emotions, because perhaps we know what inspires us, but do we feel worthy enough of pursuing it? Is that going to create the change that we want to see in our reality? Is that going to give us that security? That could be another thing. Is that which inspires us going to give us the security that we're craving in our reality? So it's acknowledging that as well. Okay. In terms of our physical reality, I mean, I might have said this before actually, but Ceres is in sextile to the sun. So the soul on a deep level is wanting that change in our reality and is allowing for that nurturing energy to come in so that we can reap the rewards of that which we are planting. Okay, we've got to understand what we want to plant first, and that goes back to our desires, what we want, feeling worthy enough, and whether we feel secure enough, or if we're balancing that with risk versus, you know, that secure aspect of Taurus. Okay. Mars, I want to mention Mars, didn't I? So Mars in Leo is in trine to the North Node. So by the divinely inspired action that we're going to take as a result of all of this on our path forward, with courage, Leo energy, that is leading us towards our path for sovereignty, our purpose. So being that leader of our own life, and vice versa, as we step more into that aspect of being a leader of our own life, we're more motivated to take action from a place of courage, because we've got that strength and that faith within us to do that when it comes to taking the action. Okay. Now, Venus is in Capricorn, and I did cover this on a separate report. So Venus is there sort of saying, look, okay, when we look at our investment of resources that I often mention with Venus, you know, time, energy, love, attention, money, do we need boundaries in place here? Is it actually allowing us to work towards what we want? And, you know, is it teaching us anything? These investments, are they teaching us anything? Because think of that Saturnian energy within the Capricorn side. But looking at boundaries, particularly, you know, where might we need those in terms of what we're investing our resources in? And, you know, where do we want to experience that love and joy, and being quite regimented about our investments? So having to kind of look at it in a more regimented way. Of course, she was in Sagittarius, and that allowed us to open up the heart chakra to experience more of what we enjoy and what brings us that love, that joy back to us. So that which truly does inspire us from the heart space, and to be open to that, to pursue those things that light us up, and where we feel we can be the real us. But now there's more of a regimented approach of, okay, we've really got to look at these investments to make sure that they are in alignment with what we're doing, and to be quite focused on boundaries, okay, in that respect. Giving too much time and energy in a certain area, not giving enough, you know, looking at all of those sort of things as well. Okay, so that's that chart, and I will just show you finally the chart against the UK so you can see where it's happening. Okay, there you go. So for the UK, it's happening in the 11th house of connections with others, and the moon is directly conjunct, exactly conjunct the UK's natal Venus in Taurus. heavy message here about worth and values, feeling worthy enough of pursuing certain things within our connections with others, and what needs to be released or purged in relation to our connections with others that's not serving that. Where is change needed? Okay, there could be illuminations, revelations, awakenings with regards to our connections with others, okay, from a UK collective perspective. And then we've also got the sun here opposite in the 5th house of love and joy and expression. And we've got the sun on top of the UK's natal palace. So yeah, having to go deep within the heart space to understand what we do want to fight for and how the soul essence of the cosmos is supporting us to fully shine no matter what. So if there is an element of risk here, the sun is on top of palace in the 5th house. So something that you really want to go towards in terms of that creative expression. Well, the sun is saying, I'm shining and I'm a massive expansive force in the cosmos, and I'm saying, go for it. But again, you know, that opposition energy, do we feel worthy enough of it? So that's the opposition energy, okay? And how does that impact your connections with others? Is it something that you want to go in the direction of and other people around you are not going to be supportive of, and therefore you don't feel worthy of doing it? Things like this, okay, that can be attributed to this energy. It might not resonate for you at all, and that's fine. It's better to look at your unique natal chart. This is from a collective point of view, okay? But there is that emphasis that the sun and the moon are both on top of something in this chart, heightening that energy of Venus and Pallas, feminine energy as well, by the way, okay? Saturn is in the 9th house, as we know, because he was there before, so learning and discovery. And then we've also got Mars is in the 1st house, so that's about the self, so being driven by that courage, motivated by the self, to take action towards the sovereign path, which is in the 10th house of work, inner authority and social status. By the way, is very close to the UK's natal midheaven, okay? And we've got Vesta and Lilith in the 4th house. So the 4th house is about foundations. It can be family, it's the home. So think of the literal home, but it can also be the home as in the self, you know, the being quite deep there, the soul as in the home. But that's where the fairness is needed, but the depth is also needed because we've got Libra and we've got Scorpio there. And there's a lot of feminine energy there because we've got Vesta, Lilith and Juno. But commitment to the self when it comes to our own foundation and our own home is what's going to bring about that fairness and restore that balance, because we're committing to looking within and to going deep into the shadows to understand our raw, authentic self, because then we can apply the necessary action from a place of courage, okay, and how healing that's going to be within our inner authority, 10th house, Chiron, okay? There you go. Right, let's close that up. I might just take a couple of cards from the Queen of the Moon deck. See if there's any additional messages for the collective. Okay, so this is in relation to what's coming up on the 15th and 16th, Saturn direct, and of course the full moon in Taurus. Let's see what else the collective needs to know, please, for their highest good from this Queen of the Moon deck. Let's get one more. Okay, now, I don't usually take reversals with oracles. However, it's interesting because this was the first one and it came out in the reverse, and it's fear. There's shadow aspects all over that one for me. Okay, we've also got protection and we've got growth in the reverse. So there is a resistance to growth. There is a resistance to change because of the fears. And that could be about the fear of diving deep into that authentic self that I just explained in the astrology, and going into the shadows to understand what those fears are and why they're there in order to heal them. There could be resistance, but that is beautiful because there is divine protection, and it's understanding that the wisdom is actually carrying you forward and nurturing you in respect of all of this. You know inherently within what you need to, where you need to go on the healing journey, and if you need to go deep, and acknowledgement of certain things. It's being kind to yourself and understanding there is that nurturing quality there as well. Okay, on the bottom, hidden energy, we have got the void. So that to me Feels like the dark night of the soul. So many people, oh, apologies if that went dark, then my battery is going. There you go. My phone went into darkness there. So the void. Okay, so this is about understanding that there are periods like this where we have to go within, and it can feel like we can't see where we're going, we don't know where we're heading, and it can feel very unnerving. This is about sitting with it and acknowledging the wisdom and insight that can come from that silence, from that kind of, to use the word darkness, but meaning that it's kind of like when you're meditating and you can see other things through your third eye, but you've got your eyes closed, but you can see other things. So it's not necessarily dark. It is silent, potentially, unless you've got music on or sound healing. But it's about going into the void sometimes. And whatever that void might be for you, it's about understanding that sacred space for you that allows you to connect into your soul, to seek that wisdom. Okay. And also, as you are meditating, to be guided accordingly by your higher self, that feels, and there needs to be some acceptance of that. Also, what I'm getting from this is, other people, because that's two different people there connecting, and that's the power of that connection between the two. So don't underestimate the impact of your story on other people, what you're going through and experiencing, and how that can actually help other people, but also those people around you that are soul tribe, that do support you at this time of all this healing, of all this kind of transformational process, and the journey generally. If you've got supportive people around you that you can talk to about it, and maybe even express what those fears are around going deep, then yes, it's acceptance of how that can be very powerful also by speaking up. But remember I said about Mercury and Sagittarius, expressing oneself. With the square to Saturn, it's almost like, can I really say what I need to say? So it's bearing that in mind as well. Okay. But I'll leave that there. I'm wishing you all the best for this upcoming planetary event or events. So Saturn, of course, stationing direct first of all. And then we've got that full moon in Taurus with the Uranus conjunction to the moon. But also, when we look at Saturn, having just seen him go direct, that sesqui square opening up with Lilith. So really that full moon is kind of activating that lesson that Saturn is teaching us with Lilith about needing to go within to understand who we really are beneath the surface. Okay. And the Scorpio energy of this season is supporting that as well, coming from an authentic, real place. We want to be real, we want to be seen and recognized for who we are as a real person, but we might have to just go deep to acknowledge the depth of that realness, to acknowledge who we are as that divine soul. Okay. And understand if there's shadow aspects and there's layers that's been built up over time, it's kind of unraveling those to get to the I was going to say to get to the pit, you know what I mean? That's the deep depths of the soul, to get down to really what we need to acknowledge about ourselves in order to heal it, grow from it, whatever we need to do, or even just to express it. Okay. And then move forward in that direction from a place of courage and also from a place of commitment to the self. So I'm sending you all the best. And again, we've got Pluto moving into Aquarius not long after. I have done a separate YouTube video. In fact, there's a few that are on my YouTube channel about this Pluto ingress and the energy since he went retrograde, and the movement and so on. So check those out if that resonates for you. But I'll leave it there, and I'm sending you love and blessings. See you soon. Take care.